Hello chess friends and welcome to Zadov's chess channel and welcome to the Airthings Masters tournament in 2020. We're now again in the day 2 of the super final between Teimour Radjabov and Levon Aronian. If you don't know, Teimour Radjabov won the first match game. If he makes a draw or wins, of course, the second match game, then he's the winner of this very nice tournament. So the first game ended in a draw. We're now in the game 2, in which Teimour played with the white pieces and opened with the move d4. Aronian plays knight to f6, c4, g6, the king's Indian. Really, Aronian is trying to play now sharp openings because here he has to make a win. He has to win now the second match game of the day 2. Here knight to c3, and we have now d5. So the Grunfeld defense is on. We have bishop to g5. We have the shotgun variation of the Grunfeld, which is a very natural idea. We want to basically get rid of the key defender of the d5 square. Very nice attack. And here knight to e4. We have bishop to f4. We're forcing now trades of knights after knight to c3. You could maybe take something like knight takes e4, but here after d takes e4, you are having some troubles around the square d4. Bishop to g7 followed with c5 will happen, so that's why it's better to play this line like Teimour Radjabov did after move knight to e4. Here bishop to f4, knight takes c3, b takes c3, and still d takes c4 doesn't bring you so much. It's only temporarily win of the pawn. Queen to a4 and queen to c4 will happen. And what we can notice now about the pawn structure is that white has here a decisive pawn majority in the center, has now also the bishop out. Very nice, I think, idea. If you have troubles maybe to play against the Grunfeld, the Stockholm variation is perfectly fine. So c5, we have e3, knight to c6, and now c takes d5, queen to d5, queen to f3. Very nice idea, because if we trade off the queens, queen to f3, knight to f3, then again a new piece comes out with the tempo, which is the most important thing. After c takes d4, here c takes d4 will happen. Still, we're continuing with two centralized pawns. We would have again a pawn central majority. We would have a comfortable game. Bishop to b5 followed with knight to e4 could be also an opportunity, so that's why here in this continuation white probably slightly better. So after move queen to f3, here Levon Aronian retreats again. Queen to d7, we have bishop to b5. Now we're threatening also some pinning ideas. We want to maybe remaneuver the knight somehow to f3 and then followed with knight to e5. We have a6, bishop takes c6, queen to c6, and now after queen to c6, b takes c6 was played, and we have now a new position in which black is of course the double pawn structure, has the bishop pair as a compensation, so still an equal game for both sides. Although I would rather be white here because there are obvious ideas how to continue this. What we want to do is maybe to get rid of these two bishops and cement maybe our knight here on e5 and attacking simply the c6 weakness, or maybe remaneuver the knight here somehow to d3 and then cement the knight on c5 when we maybe trade off the bishops, and then this knight could find really a nice square on a dark square, and if we trade off the dark square bishops, then this knight outpost on c5 would be really something that would bother black in the continuation of the game. So here knight to f3, we have bishop to g7, Aronian, knight to e5, we have bishop to f5, f3, preparing e4 motifs. That's, I think, the slightly advantage that white has here, this pawn majority in the center. White can always push the pawns in the center. White can make progress with his pawns in the game. Bishop to e5, and here after bishop to e5, f6, bishop to g3. This is now an opposite color bishops endgame. It should be probably a draw because if in this top grandmaster level, I think this should be really something that shouldn't bother you. But in the game, bishop to d3 played by Aronian, also a very nice move to get the activity with the bishop. What the most important thing is that we should realize that both of these bishops are cutting off these two squares for the rooks, so the rooks cannot be activated on the only file that's on the board. It's of course the b file. In the game, rook to d1, and now c4, a pragmatic idea here by Levon Aronian. He fixes his bishop on a very active square. Here rook to d2, king to f7, we have now rook to b2, and now rook from h to d8, e4. Okay, black has maybe faced now this pawn central control that white has built here, but still it's playable. And here Levon Aronian makes, I think, a huge mistake. I'm not sure why he did this move. A simple continuation is to play rook to d7, really getting use of maybe somehow rook to a7, rook to b7, trading off the rooks, and this game should be a draw. But he played here a c5, and he sacrificed the pawn. I'm really not sure why, because after d takes c5, I was hoping for that he would try to continue with the move e5, that would be, I think, at least some kind of a continuation. If you have given up your pawn on c5, then maybe rook from d to c8, and we can still take out this pawn, and we can also force maybe black to defend this pawn in long terms. But here, after move d takes c5, rook from a to c8, and now bishop to f2. Still, Teimour Radjabov simply protects the pawn, has now an extra pawn. This was again a bad move by Levon Aronian without any compensation, I think, which was really bad choice. He didn't have to do this. Here he tried f5. We have e takes f5, g takes f5. It's still playable. If you play this now endgame really correctly, then black can make it draw. But still, after bishop to e3, f4, Levon Aronian tries to deflect the bishop from the pawn. It's not a problem. After rook to c5, still I think this could be a draw for black if the game is played perfectly. But what surprised me really in the game by Levon Aronian is his time problems. He's playing always, he's thinking about many moves, like for 5-6 minutes. He loses many time just in order to calculate one move. Teimour Radjabov is playing much more faster. He's playing much easier. He's finding really this tactical ideas very fast. So here Levon Aronian had already some time pressure after move rook to c5. Still white is up to pawn, king to f2, rook to b5, rook takes b5, a takes b5, and now a3. We have rook to a8, and now rook to a1, rook to a6. Still playable for both sides. Still black, I think, can make something happen. Black can make at least a draw here. g4, we have king to e6, we have h4, king to d5, h5, we have e5, bishop to e3, here rook to a8, and now bishop to g5. Here king to e6, bishop to h4, king to d5, and now king to e3. What we would love to do is somehow get two connected pass pawns here, maybe something like f4, f5, but still it's not possible. This pawn is here, is of course protecting this very important f4 square. If you try to push these pawns early, then you can maybe create one pass pawn, but still this bishop and the rook can maybe protect everything. The good part about Levon Aronian setup is that the king is near to this pawn, so black can, white cannot also just attack this pawn. It still can be defended. So still, I think this should be a drawish line. Here, king to e6, rook to a7, king to e6, bishop to e7 here by Radjabov. Very nice move, I think. Now we can play much more freely with our rook because the bishop is now protecting both of these pawns. We want to bring out maybe here the rook behind these two pawns and simply try to push them further. So king to e6, bishop to b4, h6, rook to b2. We have bishop to king to f2 here by Teimour Radjabov. Here, let's go back. h6 wasn't really the best of moves. Why is this move really bad? Because you have placed one of your pawns on a square which can be attacked by the dark square bishop. So basically what you're trying to do is to place your pawns on life squares where the bishop cannot attack them. So the h6 was the blunder. Maybe something like rook to a7 slightly better and just wait here. You can maybe attack, but still we could play some moves with our rook and try to defend this position. As I said, the king is, I think, near enough to protect this b5. But in the game, again, h6, that was, I think, the second mistake by Levon Aronian. So he played this c5 mistake. Now he played also this h6 mistake. Rook to b2, bishop to h7 here. Teimour Radjabov goes now very actively with the bishop. He's trying now to target, of course, the h6. That was the problem. Now here king to c6. Here again Radjabov defends, but now after e4 we have bishop to h6, very important move, and after e takes f3, this is now completely winning because we got what we wanted. As I said, we want to create two connected pass pawns in the game. b4, c takes b4, c3. Okay, you can push this pawn further, but here you can maybe push it, but again, king to f3, very important. This bishop is covering the c1 square. In the game, king to b5, we have a very nice move here by Radjabov. He's creating at least a new pass pawn. After b4 we can push further, and the problem is now if you take, then you get, of course, bishop to d2 and you lose the rook. So far taking is not an option here. Aronian has to play on the blockade, rook to a6, but now bishop to c1 is protecting, and what we want to do is now get our king here and simply push this pawn further. Rook to f6, king to g2, rook to d6, simply pushing the pawn further, rook to d1, bishop to e3. Here Aronian is trying to take out the bishop and then of course promote to c1. But here after bishop to c1, again a perpetual, rook to h6, rook to d6, and now Teimour Radjabov found his tactics. He saw now a great move, a7. Getting rid of the bishop is of course a possibility, but now comes queen a8, the promotion to queen. After c1, the promotion to queen here. You can pause the video and try to find now the winning move here for white. Okay, it's of course the move king to b1, rook to b1 after queen to b1, here queen to b7, and in this position Aronian resigned. You lose the queen because your king is on the same file. It was game over, and here after this game Teimour Radjabov has really a decisive advantage. Levon Aronian needs now 2 wins in order to make it somehow, maybe to additional games, but I don't think so. How Teimour Radjabov is playing, he's really great here. He plays very fast, which is very important to say. He doesn't risk so much maybe, but his lines are perfectly fine, his defenses are perfectly fine. His play with white is also very aggressive, so I'm not seeing a good way how Levon Aronian should make something out of this. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Again, Levon Aronian basically beat himself, I think, in this game. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my coverage so far. Here's the link, and if you want to see maybe some best chess games of all times, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.